All right, let's get started. I'm here with Roy Weathers. He's the vice chair of PwC, and he's also the CEO of CEO Action. And he's joining us to talk about what he believes is the role that corporate America can play in advancing racial equity. So, Roy, let's just get down to business, all right?
Yeah, and it's great to be with you. Happy to be invited, and yeah, let's dive into it.
Okay, fantastic. So I want to start with your perspective. You were named PwC's Chief Diversity Officer back in 2007. So fast forward 13, 14 years later, from your point of view, how has this notion of diversity and inclusion changed over the years, both within PwC and across the wider business community here in the US?
Yeah, it's a great question, and to put that, even my role as the firm's chief diversity officer in 2007 in perspective. So my background is business. I most recently ran one of our three businesses, our tax business for the U.S. and for Mexico. But back in 2007, our then CEO felt that it was important to get business leaders into roles and focus on this notion of diversity way back then. And time goes by really fast. But I came out of the business and spent 2 years as our firm's chief diversity officer, focusing and working hand in hand with my partners and with our professionals to advance diversity and inclusion in the firm. We spent a lot of time focused on how do you not make diversity a separate part, but how do you make diversity an integrated part of how we do business, how we recruit, how we retain, how we serve our clients. And so as a business leader, it was different for me actually going into the role of diversity. But that was part of our strategy. And so as you fast forward to today, we stayed on that journey as a firm, right up into and including putting out a transparency report this year on how we're doing relative to diversity. And that's a journey. And so from a corporate America perspective, many companies are in different spots in their journey. What I would say, evidenced by the outpouring coming out of the summer and some of the other things that have happened, there are so many more corporate organizations, professional organizations that appreciate their role in diversity and inclusion and equity than ever before.
So it really sounds as if in many ways you've been paving the way here. You talk about diversity inclusion starting with something that was very siloed in the beginning, right? And then integrating it within how the company operates as business and then holding yourself accountable. So let's then talk about your decision to launch CEO Action back in 2017, correct?
Yes.
So go ahead. What drove you?
Yeah, no, happy to dive into that because it's an incredible true corporate story as it relates to diversity and inclusion. And for us as a firm, it came out of a voice inside our organization from our underrepresented minority groups that were witnessing, as many of us were, the things that were happening around the country, the shootings in Houston, for example, and Dallas. And out of that outcry, our CEO, Tim Ryan, said to many of us, we need to do more. Obviously, we've been on our journey, but we need to do more, and we need to do it in a way that brings corporate America together. And so out of that was born CEO Action for Diversity and Inclusion. At the time, there were probably less than 100 companies that had signed up to take the pledge. It was simple. Three pieces. One, make your environment safe for your employees and others to have the conversation. Two, provide training, whether it's implicit bias training or other training. And three, share amongst all of us. And so there's a platform, if you go and look it up online, there's a platform there where companies have been sharing their ideas and what's working amongst each other. Concept was simple. We knew that corporate America working together could start to drive real change. We knew that for those that were just starting on their journey, there would be comfort in learning by joining in with other corporations. So what started as a few hundred companies, well over 1,600 companies that have personally, each CEO has to personally sign the pledge. and those companies have gotten engaged. And so that was where CEO Action for Diversity and Inclusion started. And obviously, we're doing more now coming out of this summer.
So 2017 wasn't all that long ago, and yet it does seem far away because so much has happened in the past year. And I'd really like, and please get personal if you feel you need to, looking at the events that have happened, really since May. What do you believe? How do you feel about corporate America's role in really securing and advancing racial equity across the country?
Yeah. So there are really two things that jumps out at me when I think about corporate America and race and society and diversity and inclusion and equity. The first is something that we know to be true. When corporate America rolls up its sleeves and focuses, we get innovation, we get ideas, we get expansion, we get growth. As a business leader, those are all the things I wake up every day thinking about. Having had an opportunity to run a business of 12,000 people, those are all the things I thought about. And when you couple the notion around policy, when you couple the notion around change in the country relative to the societal challenges, that's the perfect fit. And so the work, and as you probably know, we launched CEO Action for Racial Equity coming out of this summer. The work was how do you marshal the influence and the perspective and the ingenuity and the resources of corporate America to address the societal problem. And I think that there's a perfect match there. I mean, if you think about it, if you're a CEO today, it's hard to be a CEO of any substantial organization or a not-for-profit and not appreciate that your customers and your employees live in society, and there is a higher level of expectation around engagement. The BRT, as you probably know, several months ago, started this conversation around a broader group of stakeholders. That was a very important conversation. And so what I feel at this moment in time is that corporate America, by and large, is coming to grips with its responsibility and the need to be involved and engaged. I think that's where we are.
So there's one word I'd like to latch on, and I'm going to say it because when I was refreshing what I know about CEO Action, one thing that caught my eye, and that word again is influence. And influence is so important as far as mentoring, speaking to people's hearts and minds. So on that point, you have a fellowship program at CEO Action, and I'd like for you to talk about that initiative and what really sets it apart from other similar programs that we have seen across the U.S.
Yeah, so happy to. I'll start by saying this initiative was launched October 1. So it's a startup in many ways. It was a result of many things that happened this summer that we all know about and witnessed and have discussed and debated and in many cases agonized over. Because we had significant number of signatories in CEO Action for Diversity and Inclusion, our ability to tap into many of those CEOs and ask one fundamental question: does corporate America have a role to play in public policy, not just inside your organization, which is paramount, it's important, but leveraging the influence in the public policy arena to drive change in society where there are policies that need to be, we think about it in three ways, that need to exist, that don't exist, that will drive more equity, more participation, access, more rights. Are there policies that exist, but they need to be amplified? They're not quite meeting the result that those who drafted the legislation and language intended. And third, we call it the social contracts. Are there things that corporate America can come together on? You don't need a law. You don't need a piece of legislation. You need alignment and agreement across corporate America to address whether it's early childhood education or whether it's the lack of primary health care in certain communities, or whether it's lack of financial stability in certain areas, unbanked and underbanked. There are a lot of things that corporate America can do. The digital divide, you think about all the kids now that are trying to school without adequate access to broadband, et cetera. And so across those three areas, right, new law, amplifying existing law, and social contracts amongst the corporations, we said there's work that can be done here. And so simply today, roughly 5 months in or so, we have just under 250 fellows from 100 plus companies. These are fellows that are employees of the companies, but they've been lent to us, this platform, for a year or two to focus on these issues. What makes us unique? We're focused on 4 areas. They're not unique: health, education, economic empowerment, and public safety. Those are not unique. But what makes us unique is the investment of talent by corporate America on loan to really work these issues. We don't profess to know everything in this area. We have incredible talent: lawyers, economists, data scientists, human capital leaders, diversity leaders, folks who spent time and appreciate government affairs, for example. But what we do bring to the table is our willingness to collaborate, to bridge build, to look for bipartisan opportunities, candidly, that do exist for us to advance this effort. And so we started in October. We're super excited in terms of the work we're doing. I like to say we're a think tank and a do tank. And I think that makes us unique relative to some of the activity that you see out there that we're all very favorably disposed to and positively influencing.
So I really like your phrase that I might start using. I might steal it from you, do tank. I love that. And you described this fellowship program as a startup, but it's pretty clear you've hit the ground running. So thank you so much for joining us, Roy. We really appreciate your time. And now I would like to turn the virtual stage over to Mary. Thank you so much.
Thank you.